Hi, Mel.
Hello.
Thank you for being my first ever guest on my podcast.
I am incredibly honoured and very, very excited.
I'm excited. I'm really excited to hear what you've got to say and for us to learn a bit more about you and the massive success that you've had. Today, we're talking with the one and only Melanie Spencer, Group CEO of Thompson Spencer. Welcome.
Thank you, Zania. I am very, very honoured and excited to be here and just maybe a little bit nervous. But no, it's an honour to be here. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a bit about yourself, because some of our listeners won't know necessarily who you are and how you came to be this incredible person. She's just been recognised by Campaign Asia as one of the top 30 women to watch in the Asia Pacific. I mean, that is mega. Mega.
Yeah, it was a little pinch me moment. I think they may have made a mistake, but no.
No, you mean to go, yes, thank you.
No, that's incredible.
How did you get
definitely a bucket list career moment for me, for sure.
Tell us from you and how you got to where you are now.
The funny thing is, I always knew that I would have a media company. Even when I was a teenager, I collected magazines, and I remember doing this session kind of around a bottle of wine with my friends when we were 17. And we did this thing where it was like, where are we going to be in 10 years? And I said, I'm going to be driving a Porsche and I am going to own a media company. I do not own a Porsche, but I own part of a media creative agency. So that's come to fruition. How I got here was studied in France, or finished my degree off in France, did the Antipodean thing and went to London. I actually worked on trading desks, which was hilarious because finance is definitely not my forte. And then moved to Sydney, and that's where I really, really wanted to get into marketing. And I had one of those sliding door moments where I got a phone number for, I think it was for what was Bauer Media.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember so vividly sitting in this park, picking up my phone, which was like a Nokia pink phone, to call this number to get a job at Bauer.
In New Zealand?
No,
in Australia.
In Australia. I think it was ACP or whatever it was before Bauer. I never made that call.
Really?
I never, ever made that call. So, and I always think back on what would have happened if I made that call.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, I got approached by a recruitment agency, and they said, oh, look, we really want you to work with us. And that was the easy route for me because I was wanted. And it was brilliant. It was brilliant coaching. You had to work 12, 14-hour days. You were selling. It was competitive. You had to meet budgets. That sort of fire in me for selling was ignited. But I always knew marketing was my thing. And I got this... found out through a friend of mine that this small PR company in Australia or Sydney was looking for a PR executive. I didn't even know what PR was, and I went for an interview, and that was the beginning of my career. Wow. So I started off at Lander Communications. They're a renegated PR company. We did PR for big, massive property developments, but also looked after big celebrity chefs like Matt Moran. So that was my first sort of foray into influencer work, but way back then we didn't know it was that. So that was the start of my career.
Wow. So do you think if somebody wanted to become successful in social media, they need to have kind of cut their teeth in different industries before leading up to the success that you've had? Because you've obviously done work with marketing and PR, the beginning of influencer management, talent management. And so do you think that's kind of why you've had this amazing success, because you've kind of cut your teeth in different industries?
Possibly. And I think everyone sort of forgets that social media now is very complex. It's not just
a lot of people think it's not complex.
Yeah, well, it is.
Yeah.
Incredibly complex. And to get it right is you have to know what emotionally connects with something. You have to know what rationally connects with something, someone, and you have to, it's a very noisy platform or channel now. So to cut through, yes, you have to sort of have, I guess, awareness from all different realms. So a squiggly line is always a good thing.
And so with 2024, we're in a new year, which is really exciting, and hopefully the craziness of the past is left behind, and we're hopefully, things will start to get better this year around the world, but also, New Zealand's is a real hothouse at the moment. Some really exciting things are happening, as much with what you guys are doing. What do you think the kind of trends that are coming through in terms of digital marketing and social media for 2024?
So things are moving really, really fast. I remember when I first started at Socialites back in 2019, I got interviewed by 7 Sharp on the rise of TikTok. And everyone was like,
When
what
was that?
What is TikTok?
What year was that?
It was 2019, 2020.
Wow.
And it was like, oh my God, what is TikTok? How do you use it? Why would brands use it? It just cracks me up that it was only a few years ago that we were trying to convince brands to use influencers. So when we acquired the Social Club in 2020, we were trying to convince brands to use influencers and convince brands to get into TikTok. You can see how fast things have moved. And I think 2023, it's kind of doubled in speed. And when I say that social media has become more complex, it's become more complex because everybody's on there. It's incredibly noisy and it's incredibly fragmented. So now you need to be way more memorable. Your content needs to cut through. And I think I said in an interview at the end of last year that social media content, it almost needs to be a feast for your senses. And that is what we're going to see more of. So that really, really awesome storytelling, clever storytelling, incredible content that's a feast for the senses. So the sound, the sight, you want to almost reach through the screen and touch something. The only thing that is not igniting the senses is the smell, but you never know what will come of that. But, so it's
because last year was all about lo-fi.
Yep.
And so when you talk about creating these incredible experiences, do you think that means there may be a sort of a turnaround in the trend of lo-fi?
No.
Where people are spending more on production? No.
So I think you need to have both.
Yeah.
So I think lo-fi is going to be around for a long time.
Yeah.
So I think you need an always-on hygiene of lo-fi, so that accessible, personable, whether it's UGC or a content creator, making it look really accessible and connecting with the audience. But then you need a layer of whether it's a tentpole moment tentpole moments throughout the years where you've got that high quality content that's telling the story of the brand. I think 2023 was the year of I say going for the throat content. We don't need to do that anymore. I think that lo-fi personal content is going to continue, but we're going to see more beautiful brand memorable content being created.
Because I've heard quite a lot of people say that influencers are like so passé, that it doesn't feel authentic. But I read a really interesting stat this morning, actually, from a new global piece of research that talks about the cut through and attention that you can get when you're using influencers who've got a following and a I suppose a tribe of people that love them. what is your view on the influencers versus content creators and that kind of being authentic? And some brands, I think, in New Zealand still aren't really kind of leaning into it, but I know globally it was something like 89% of brands that have used influencers will always continue to use them, and maybe even starting to see the trend where the influencers are moving from being just in social, where they're starting to come up into the more traditional layers. I think we've seen it here with like Happy Mum, Happy Child, Maria Foy. I saw her on I think it was a Vanish ad.
Yep.
Yeah.
We did
so,
that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah, I suppose I'm asking for the brands and the kind of murmurings of influencers are passe and no, don't go there. What would you say to them?
Yeah, we've heard that ever since I started social media. Funnily enough, I think the influencers that are passe are the ones that are holding up a product and saying, can I, buy this? In fact, there is a space for that.
Yeah,
it's coming. Yeah, it's actually coming.
On live.
Funnily enough, on lives.
Yeah.
But it is again. It's kind of like when websites started to become the trend, and everyone was getting into websites, and then it was just very cluttered and noisy. The same goes for influencers, but at the end of the day, you've got to remember human psyche. Human psyche, when you are connected with someone and that is connected, you are following their story, their journey, you love their style, you love what they do, you find them inspiring. If they are involved in a brand, you can't help but want to have a part of that or a piece of that or be, to be a part of that. So influencers are not going anywhere, but they've got to be brilliant at what they do. And it's kind of like your old school advertorial, right? Your old school advertorial in a beautiful magazine.
Yeah.
Writes about maybe a designer who has designed this space, and you don't actually realize, you know that it's an ad, but you don't realize it's an ad because actually what they're saying is inspirational and you want a piece of that. It's exactly like that.
But it has to be authentic to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then you've got levels of influencers, of course, and you mentioned content creators. Content creators and influencers, you've got the sort of celeb influencers who are not that great at creating content, but they've got this huge community that you can leverage off. Then you've got these insane content creators who don't have a huge following, but they know how to create banging creative.
Yeah.
And I would say, again, just like your creative that you're creating for your brand, you can use your mega or your celeb macro influencers for these tentpole moments, and use your content creators to create awesome creative, which is highly cost effective, but more of a hygiene, always on layer. Again,
so they're not passe.
Definitely not passe. No.
They're still hot.
There's influencers making gazillions of dollars out there, and they will continue to do so. But what will happen is that the ones that are not great at it will be flushed out for sure.
So I got really excited, this, I think, because we've had convos about this, but there was this trend of like traditional media and digital media, and when was the moment that digital media was going to overtake traditional media? And it happened.
It did.
Last year, 2023.
No, it happened. Didn't it happen in 2020? And then it...
Oh, I'm thinking of the Where Are the Audiences study.
Same.
Oh.
I thought it happened earlier.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay, I'm going to need to go and fact check. So...
but it's happened.
But it's very much happened now. Like, I think in 2023, I saw that it was the TV audiences in particular are shifting away and they're moving towards digital channels. And it's not that traditional channels are dead at all. Radio has had a resurgence, podcasts doing really well, hence why we're recording one today. There's lots of, very targeted media that still get amazing cut through. But I suppose now that you're in a full service agency, how are you packaging up the channels, and what does that mean with this new shift to digital and the way that you guys are working with your clients?
So I think 2024 is all about fragmentation, and media, your marketing plan is going to be fragmented. And there is always a place for traditional media, but even traditional media is being modernized. So you look at video on demand, and that is doing
really well.
Exceptionally well. And then you look at, the likes of Netflix, Neon, et cetera, and they're going to start throwing in ads as well. So we need to start thinking about how to create ads for those platforms. And to your point, I love radio. I think radio is still got a huge place, and it just depends on where your audiences are, and that's how you build a plan around that.
Yeah.
One of our clients is Wattle, and some of their audiences are still on TV for sure, and that's where we would do a huge creative TV campaign. But with TV comes a little bit of print, comes social media, comes digital marketing. So that's where it's fragmented, and putting everything in one big pot doesn't fly anymore.
Yeah.
So you've got to be super, super smart. You've got to have a very clever media agency to be super agile, to be super fast, and to also be not just go for the stock standard every time. They've got to be creative in your media planner or your media strategist. Has to be super creative as well.
Yeah. So do you think it's really important that clients, marketing leads, remember to kind of, I suppose, just because you've done it before doesn't necessarily mean you should keep doing it.
100%.
To kind of remember to keep considering maybe there's other optimizations that you would want to make to the media plan to bring it and make it even more successful.
100%. And I think people forget that we as marketers live in a bubble.
Yeah.
And our audience's behaviours don't necessarily mirror our behaviours. So if I watch TV, doesn't necessarily mean that the brand that I'm working on and their audiences watch TV. So you got to check yourself. And I think as marketing leads,
to respect yourself.
Exactly. No, but it's true, right? It's so easy to fall into the trap of why wouldn't anyone want to watch this content? Because I would watch it.
I mean, I've got a really secret habit that I do, which is I watch on demand on Bravo, the TV3 network, quite a lot, because I'm a bit of a desperate housewives addict.
Right.
All of them.
Yes, I quite like.
And I noticed that not a lot of brands are taking the opportunity to show up in those real key shows that, like, maybe mums with kids might be really into.
Guilty pleasures, man.
Totally guilty pleasure. And I love it. And, like, I think it's really interesting because there are some brands that are there, but there are opportunities where I notice on particular on-demand platforms where it only seems to be a few brands that are really showing up regularly, which is interesting to me. Do you think... I know that there's quite often TVNZ is seen as a bigger network, but and maybe TV3 network's not used as much. But I think they've both got. I'm wondering if media should be doing it at a program level, placement at a program level versus the kind of traditional 70-30 and peak, off peak.
Yeah, look, what I'm talking to my team about now is media around the edges and creativity in media planning.
Yeah.
So I'm learning about TV planning now. I'm new to it, But it's like, what can we do to be creative in media planning? And I completely agree with you. Like, lift up that bonnet and do something different.
Because we've been doing this whole 70-30 rule forever.
Yes.
70% in peak and 30% in off-peak.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering now that with the proliferation of media and the way that people are split between traditional and digital channels, so you may not watch TV3 on TV network live, but you definitely will watch it on demand, whether that rule needs to be maybe pivoted slightly. And I know there's a really great one about, rather than targeting TV versus targeting screens.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So whether it be a mobile screen or whether it be your computer screen or whether it be, it doesn't matter where it is, you're just targeting the screen.
Yeah, and I think we forget, as an agency, we have to also understand the huge investment that brands make to make a TV ad.
Yeah.
So that's where you've also got to be really clever, and that you're shooting a TV ad, but you've got another videographer there shooting for digital.
Because that's a really new trend.
Yes.
That's not something that happens a lot. So
No.
a lot of brands are trying to get, and I know a lot of agencies are struggling with that from a cost efficiency point of view, and also having too many people on set. How you get maybe social content at the same time as shooting your TVC, how that kind of works together in a seamless day. And it's challenging. I've been on 2 sets that have done it, and it's been really exciting because it's so new. But it has meant that there's more people on set, and there still is I think an emphasis on the time and the time and the expertise is spent more on the traditional channel of TV to get the perfect asset, and it's also costly. And so then if you're wanting to spend a few more hours to get the digital content, some people are kind of not necessarily needed for that part, and they're standing around kind of twiddling their thumbs. So it's interesting. I don't know whether anyone's nailed it yet, like what the secret is to have that perfect shoot.
I think it's a work in progress, but you need obviously the teams working side by side, but also the social media videographer needs to just know their stuff really, really well. And I think that's where you have, and we're seeing it so much and going full service, is that you've got that creative director working side by side with the social media specialist or director.
Yeah.
So they know.
Is that a thing now?
It is.
Social media director on set?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, we're doing it.
That's so cool.
Absolutely. So they're going on the TV set, and they are capturing all that amazing creative that is going to work beautifully with the TV and the big campaign creative.
That is definitely something that I hope all agencies are looking at doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope so too,
Yeah.
because it makes sense. There is no way, and you've always been the one that says, don't do matching luggage.
I hate matching luggage.
Everybody hates matching
Maybe
luggage.
people don't know what the hell we're talking about when we
Okay.
say that. You say what matching luggage is.
Matching luggage is when you do a big TV ad and then you just chop it and throw it onto social.
Yeah. We don't like that.
We don't like that, and we don't accept that, and nobody likes that. So please don't do it.
It feels like lazy.
It
lazy
is lazy.
creative.
But then when you've got a social media director on set, you're going to have this beautiful TV ad, but at the same time, what's going to pop up on social is synergized or in line with what's on TV. But
Have you got
it's
any
made
great
for
examples
platform.
that you've seen, like that stand out in your mind?
So we've got one coming out for Long White over
cool.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But have you seen any examples that our viewers or listeners might know?
No, because I only know that what we're doing. But it's happening.
Yeah.
And I think what is really, really cool is also creative that been created for social, and then we see it pop up.
Because I feel like
above
it's
the
like you might
line.
have the TV ad happening, and then you'll think of a offshoot to the script. Maybe it's some funnies that are behind the scenes, or there's another like side or like another a spin-off of the story with maybe the same actors, or there could be so many opportunities
So many.
to give social that kind of extra edge, or and not all be
And
matching.
that's the real stuff. And that's why that lo-fi content is so popular.
So should they be shooting on phones?
Yes. Some of it should be shot on phones for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. This is why it's complex.
It is complex.
This is why it's, it's really important to get that strategy up front. And that strategy is a movable feast. It's always evolving, but something like set up front and then a plan. And you need teams of experts. Doesn't need to be hugely expensive if you don't want it to be. But you need an agency or a clever person to help you navigate that world.
So if you were to give 3 tips to a brand marketing manager on how they should consider creating engaging content for this year, what would those 3 tips be?
Okay, I have to think about this. What would the 3 tips be? Do you mean the process or the type of content?
Just what would marketing managers how should they be considering how to create engaging, shareable content for social? And what kind of things do they need to think about looking out for, or creating, or conversations they should be having with their agency to kind of get there?
Okay. So the first, tip that you need to consider is, I love breaking down your content into your hero hub hygiene. So your hero is your tentpole moments, and then your hygiene and then your hub is kind of like seasonal things that are happening, and then your hygiene layer. It's an easy way to break down your content and look at the year ahead. The next tip I would be talking to marketing managers or CMOs about is, how are you going to connect with your community and your audience emotionally and rationally? Think of content as it's got to have that emotional hook, and then it's got to have that rational as well. So that information that they need. It seems so simple, but a lot of brands go for either or, and they forget that that's actually where the magic happens.
Because I think some of the most successful social media is when you're not necessarily trying to slap someone across the face with your deal or offer. So I almost liken it to a bit of a funnel where you're starting with your content being more broad, and it may not even necessarily be about your product, but you're trying to bring your brand to life and even get people to kind of warm up to you and what you've got to say.
Absolutely.
And then in the middle, you're kind of building trust. So what are the things that they need to know, the befores and afters, the testimonials, the whatevers, to convince them that whatever you're selling is kind of trustworthy. And then at the bottom, it's the hard-hitting remarketing, retargeting offers to kind of get someone in to close the deal.
Yeah, again, I use the analogy of going on a first date.
Yeah.
So when you go on a first date, you want to get to know the person. You want to, what drink do you like? What do you like to do in your spare time? What do you do at work? You don't just first question go, want
to hook up?
Some people do. But generally, should we get married?
Holy moly!
Let's go on a couple of dates before I put a ring on it.
Yeah.
So, and the same goes with advertising content. It's get to know, take them along the journey, then actually build that trust. Get to know me. I'm actually a really good person.
So should my social media strategy be just about ads, or should my social media strategy be about an always-on layer and then the kind of big...
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where that sort of tapestry and that richness of content comes into play. Yes, there are some clients who will just, ads are just what they need. And it depends on, again, the type of product that or the service that you're selling. And remember, social media is becoming more of a broadcast channel, and it's you're going to see fewer people posting up family pics, because that's where brands are going to show up. So Hero Hub Hygiene, definitely look at building that, taking your community on a journey, build that trust, and then go for the rational. Again, think about human psyche. What do humans need to make that purchase? Building that trust as advocacy, and also that influencer layer. Because, like it or not, influencers build trust.
Something you leaned into there just was about community.
Yes.
And I know you're massively passionate about building communities around brands. Talk about that, because I don't necessarily think lots of brands know what you mean by that, and how does that show up in a social media strategy?
So your community around a brand, whether it's on social, whether it's on the rugby field, whether it's watching a TV ad in a living room, they are your community, and you need to connect with them, and you need to take care of them. And I think a lot of brands forget that when your community or your audience engages with you on social, there needs to be some sort of love given back. And an analogy that I like to use is, if your audience walks into a shop and you ignore them, or you treat them like dirt, what is that going to do? So the same goes with being on social.
So it's like the rules are exactly the same from the real world to the digital world.
Absolutely.
Don't ignore people. Make sure you respond.
If a customer calls your helpline, do you not answer it? The same applies to social. You've got to answer these.
And what if I'm a really grumpy customer?
Well, if you're really grumpy, then you get us involved.
And that's where you do your very clever community management.
And I think another sort of thing that people forget is that how you respond on social is quite different to how you would respond from a corporate comms perspective or a PR perspective. You've got to be super, super clever and very smart around not igniting or flaring up a situation, because once something flares up, then it can be hard to...
Crisis management.
So we've done a lot of crisis management.
And I think that was social. Something that really opened my eyes when I started working in social media, is that it's actually a massive skill that you need to build. Do you have any tips around crisis management in social media and just media in general, things that you've learned and picked up along the way?
I think where it works best is when we're working with a crisis comms team, and we're working together on how to diffuse something. So what is really important is not to get into an argument on social. So one statement, stop, out. The other one is to get angry people into a private message situation, so get them out. Anything that is racist, sexist, all of those things needs to be hidden, because no one wants to see it, and in fact they don't have a right to be on social, really, if they're going to be defamatory. But every experience is unique, and you need to treat it as such. But get a specialist involved,
because it can go
can go really south really, really quickly. And that is definitely one of our specialties or our expertise is to work with corporate comms.
We
or
may have
crisis
dealt
comms.
with
We
a
may
few
have
crises
dealt with a
together.
few. We may have dealt with a few.
In my previous life.
But we looked after a number of big brands or companies during the floods. And that was huge. And we were doing 24-hour shifts.
Wow.
I may have got on the tools.
Wow.
Like doing 2 a.m. shifts to help out the team.
Yeah.
I don't
And
know
it
if I was.
together-
I don't know if I was that good. I'm quite shocked that our CM lead didn't fire me. But it was. What that did is, and I know that they are exposed to a lot, but they are exposed to a lot, and they see a lot, and they hear a lot. So you got to be one tough cookie, and hats off to them.
At the forefront.
Yeah,
On the front line.
But they're at the front line. But it is your old school customer,
It is customer,
it's
it's
customer
like the new
service.
innovative
It is
customer service.
exactly
Yeah.
customer service, community management, making people feel good, but also helping them out. So yeah,
And then loyalty. I think
could-
if in the perfect world, it would bring in loyalty and rewarding as well.
Yes.
So if you can have the kind of banter and the building up the good vibes and the community,
Yeah.
and you're able to deal with the challenges and and the customer complaints, but then also if you can have, I know the customer care team when I was working in my previous role really had a cupboard filled with vouchers and anything they could give to
Yes.
slightly grumpy customers that would really kind of put a smile on their face and turn things around.
Yes.
was massively helpful. And it's not something that the marketing team normally put in their budget each year. And I actually think
it's
loyalty is built at the front line.
Yes.
And so it's actually almost like at the till, at the cash register, on the phone, on the social community team who are managing at the front line, you need to have built in ideally some kind of reward or make good or something that you can then use to help give your customers what they need.
And it's like going into a restaurant. You've got the chefs at the back creating a beautiful experience. You've got the frontline waitress and waiters making sure that your experience is amazing. And then you've got everything around it. And if your experience isn't that great, then
The maitre d' comes in.
The maitre d' sorts it out.
Yeah.
You're not going to let that, well, unless you're a really bad restaurant, but you're not going to let that person go out because you know that person's going to go out, tell their friends and friends, and it's the old school, way of spreading the word.
Yeah.
But this spreads a lot faster.
Word of mouth is so
Word of mouth.
so powerful.
Yeah.
So measuring success, I know there are many ways to measure success in social media, and many brands for many years were like, I don't do it because it doesn't give me an immediate return on investment. Right. I mean, neither does some other media. You can't tell that it gives you a return on investment. So I think it's interesting the layers that social media has to go through to kind of prove itself as a key and critical channel. What do you think is really important for brands to consider when they're looking at measuring success?
Yeah. Look, it's unique to every brand and every campaign. I'm just going to put that out there. So when you are launching a new product or a new brand, you want eyeballs, you want reach. That's really, really important. And then it goes down a layer. And what you want to do, so create that content that is going to get the eyeballs and the reach. Then you want some sort of engagement. So an engagement is quite different now. Not as many people are commenting, but they might be saving, they might be sharing. The number of things that I share with my friends, and I'm doing what I've said not to do, but it's happening. So saves, shares, a little like, that is engagement. And also if commenting as well is like gold.
Yeah.
Then we need to sort of push our audience through the funnel. So that is either clicks to the website or some sort of call to action. And that is really important. So if you're getting clicks to your website and your website is designed properly, and then obviously purchases. And this is something that, so we are always monitoring conversions, sales, and that's the bottom of the funnel.
So, ChatGPT, AI, was across everybody's lips last year.
Yep.
And some people are sick of hearing about it. I personally love it.
Yeah.
And I'm all over it and think it's super exciting about where we're going. What are your views on AI and AR and how you can utilise those to succeed in marketing and social media, and where's your head on all of this?
Well, it's here.
Yeah.
And I think it's really exciting because what it does is I think it takes away the sort of just the boring work or the boring stuff, and elevates the creativity even more. And I think that is awesome. And it's something that we're using already. And the creative team are using it, account management team are using it, but we're dabbling in it.
Yeah.
It's not entrenched yet into our agency because we want to make sure that we do our research. I think there's a lot of there's a bit of snake oil out there as well. And I think it's Photoshop on crack. It's and that is awesome. And you need to learn how to leverage it and enhance it. But at the same time, I think if you've got that with the human aspect, that's where you've got the powerhouse. So if you don't understand marketing and brand and you're just going to use AI to create a pretty picture, that's not going to fly. So you need the brains and the strategic deep thinking to really leverage AI to the best of its ability.
Yeah. So it's not going anywhere?
No.
Client collaboration.
Yeah.
Can you describe your approach to collaborating with clients and what that looks like and how you take them on the journey with the work that you guys do?
Yeah. Really, really important. I think honesty and transparency is number one on both sides. I think when we have a situation where the client is, how do I say it, knows what they want and won't hear anything else, that's where it doesn't work so well because you're actually shoehorning what we're doing, and when we know that something else is probably better. So being open-minded on both sides, I think, is really, really critical in a relationship. And the reason why clients have agencies is because agencies, it's like getting an outsider to see the wood for the trees. And that's why it's so important, because I know for anybody, and again, human psyche, when you're working on something and you're so deep in it, you don't actually lift up and out and see what's going on outside. So that's the beauty of having an agency or a specialist like yourself. And use them for that. So that's where that collaboration comes into play, and that honesty and that transparency. And we love working with clients who are just super honest, and it's like we just don't like it.
Is there such a thing as too honest?
No.
Isn't there?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, that's what we love. We love directness. We love honesty. And we work with, we've got a couple of Aussie clients now who, and Aussies tend to be way more honest. And we love it, and that's good because you shift really quickly. So it's like, hey, this is not working for me. Great. Awesome. Thanks for telling us.
Yeah.
We're going to pivot and move really quickly, and off we go.
Yeah.
sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
So inspiration and continuous learning.
Yes.
So how do you inspire yourself and keep up with all of the masses of changes that are happening? Digital marketing, social media marketing itself is moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And I love it because I love to relearn my job pretty much every single year because I am a geek and I love reading and I love learning and I love trying to challenge myself and my thinking and see if there's other ways of doing things. How do you keep up with it all?
I'm like you. I'm always reading.
Yeah.
I'm always listening to podcasts. And also I'm part of like the Marketing Association, things like that, that is just always absorbing.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's also really important to go up another level, and I think a lot of marketers need to do this as well, is reading the business pages, like knowing what's going on outside of the bubble the marketing bubble that we live in. That is also important because bad things that are happening, the wars that are going on, the economy, the supply issues, all of those things impact the brands that we work with, and you need to be aware of because what the community's saying, what your community's saying as well, is what we is how we learn. So I'm always reading business books. I read Business Desk in the morning. I campaign Asia for marketing. Inspiration is awesome. Marketing Association and Marketing Mag. Obviously Stop Press and Campaign Brief, those sorts of things to know what's going on in terms of marketing.
Is most of that done like reading on your phone in between ducking to different meetings and at night, late at night, or where are you doing all of this?
Like literally, you've hit the nail on the head. So it might be waiting in line at the supermarket. It might be just reading quickly in the morning. Snippets. I might read one article, Business Desk, in the morning before I get out of bed. I listen to a podcast, always listen to a podcast as I'm putting my makeup on in the morning.
That's a good idea.
So that gets me like revved up and ready to go and like my brain going. And I listen to News Talk ZB on the way home, and that's kind of like businessy, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. So I'm just consuming it all.
And so how do you manage work-life balance?
I don't.
There you go, people. But to be successful, you need to not have a life.
But this is the thing, and I think people forget that work is life.
Yeah.
And
we spend more time working than we do with our friends and our family.
But it all just merges into each other. And I wouldn't have my business and I wouldn't have this life if I didn't have work. So that's how I look at it now. It's all part of life.
So is that the secret? You need to find your passion and then lean into that passion so that you're not just, what's that saying? Life. Living to work, working to live.
Yeah.
Like you want to be going to work and being excited by it every day and passionate.
Yeah.
Like I, every day, love what I do and every day it gives me joy because I love the people that I get to meet, the brains that I need to get to tap into.
Awesome.
People like you, like just sucking it all in.
It's not a job.
No.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah. And maybe is that the secret to success?
Yeah.
That you need to love it.
And I think everyone needs to know that it gets really bloody hard.
Yeah.
And there are major highs and really, really, really awful lows. But when you have those lows, you know that it's going to come back up again. And then you look back and go, holy shit, how did I do that? But we did it.
How do you, in those moments of real, like, craziness, focus and pull yourself up and keep focusing on the positive and what's coming? And
so I've got a really good business partner, as in Wendy.
Yeah.
And
hi, Wendy.
Wendy and I, we talk almost every day.
Yeah.
And it's just like a 10-minute sort of, okay, this is going on, workshop session.
Yeah,
that sort of
yeah.
thing. So you need a buddy, you need a person, you need a teammate. And I think that's really, really important. Whether it's at home or whether it's at work, you need a buddy. The other thing that I do is I prepare myself mentally. So I haven't been doing that much exercise in the last couple of years. I've just had a baby, blah, blah, blah. But preparing myself mentally, and I don't meditate because I find it really boring, but I listen to the meditation. I might listen to the meditation driving.
Ah.
So I've got this amazing app. It's called 10%, and they do like little workshops.
Yeah.
And then the meditation.
Ah.
So that,
As long as you're not listening to a hypnotherapy one, and they're like driving and suddenly.
So I don't go deep because I don't have the time to go deep. But I'm always self-improving.
Yeah. You're
And
never a done deal.
I'm never a done deal. No, this thing's way too complex. What goes on in here is quite scary. So,
What motivates you to keep going? Like, what is your motivation?
I'm never finished.
Yeah.
It's never complete.
Yeah.
And I think, the mountain just keeps going, and it's like, can I see the sun? Can I see the sunrise yet? Or, so I think, and the industry that we're in is ever evolving.
It is.
So that is just the super cool thing.
You have to have a personality to succeed in digital marketing, where you never need to reach the top, because the line always shifts. It's there and then it's there. Yeah.
It's a little bit of a addiction thing, I think. It's like addicted to the change and the dopamine hit. It's like, boof, boof,
how do I
boof.
do this one? How do I figure this out?
Yes.
So looking ahead, what are your aspirations for 2024 and 2025 and beyond? Like, where is Thompson Spencer going to go? What are you guys going to do?
Greatest ad agency in the world.
Woo!
Why not? Look, we don't ever stop, Wendy and I. 8 briefs came in last week, and 4 of them were from Australia.
Wow.
So we're getting, I don't know why and I don't know how, but we're getting a lot of attention from the Aussies.
Wow.
Which is awesome. So that could be on the horizon.
That's exciting.
I think, working with brands that want to be memorable.
Yeah.
And just doing really, really cool, awesome stuff.
So what do brands need what is that magic mix that brands need to succeed?
I'm going to just say 2 words.
Like if it was a recipe.
I'm going to say 2 words.
Yeah.
Be memorable.
Yeah.
And whatever that is, you've got to, the recipe is unique to every single brand.
Yeah.
But be memorable this year.
Yeah.
Don't go for the throat.
Yeah. What does that mean when you say that?
Don't
go for the
like.
Don't try and just sell them.
Don't sell hard sell. Be memorable, because if you're just going to sell, people are going to turn away. So unless you're selling in a really smart way. So yeah.
And as we wrap up, could you share one empowering insight or piece of advice you'd like our listeners to take away from our conversation today, as like something that they must not forget to do or look into or consider or have it top of mind?
Yeah, I think probably the most important thing is to get out of your bubble.
Yeah.
And get an outsider, whether that's a specialist or an agency or somebody to give you an outsider's view of what your brand, how it's perceived. Don't ever forget that. How you perceive your brand could be completely different to how your audience perceives it. So make sure you understand what that is.
And understand the audience. So what is the key to understanding the audience?
Look, there are so many ways you can do that, but the most obvious way is, what is your audience saying? So that is that's your community management team, or actually looking at those conversations. And that is the what your audience is saying is like, you're at the coalface of what they're wanting, what they don't want, trends, that sort of thing. So, and also the other thing is, you got to move fast. Don't muck around.
Don't overthink.
Don't overthink. Just get onto it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. There you go.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being my first guest.
That was so much fun.
Done.
I'm done. On to the next thing.
Cheers.
Cheers. This is water, by the way.
Water. Fizzy water.